Welcome to the 20 Years of Morrowind podcast. Morrowind is a shared journey we took on our own, and today we're going to discover one such journey. My guest today is Veriax, YouTuber, Twitch live streamer as well. Veriax, welcome on in.
Hi, good to be here, thank you.
Well, thank you for being here.
No problem at all, no problem.
Happy to lose 30 minutes of your life talking about Morrowind.
Yeah, happens a lot anyway on streams and such, so yeah.
Yeah, that's
nothing new there.
And I have really one question for you. I want to know about your Morrowind journey, how it started and where it's taken you.
A long story.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I bought Morrowind, I was a student and I didn't have internet where I lived. So when I bought it in its box from the store, didn't know what it was. I was just like, read it on the back. I thought, this seems pretty interesting. Yeah, so loaded it up and stuff. And then 20 years later, I'm still exploring this game with its vast world and interesting plots and quirky gameplay. And yeah, it's taken me a long way, really, since that day where I picked it up. Because I might not have never played it if I never picked up that box and read the back and thought, yeah, okay, I'll get this and see what happens. That's pretty much how it started.
So you hadn't played Daggerfall before?
No, I have played it since, but I hadn't played it at the time. No, I had no idea about the Elder Scrolls or anything like that. I was playing Baldur's Gate at the time, which is another huge favourite of mine. But they're similar games, but they're also very different as well. So it was the right genre.
And
so that's why I got it pretty much.
When you first launched the game, what were your first impressions?
It's difficult to remember.
I know.
Because it was a long time ago. But I remember just feeling the sense of awe at this huge world that you could go and explore. You could go anywhere you want and do what you wanted. Of course, the first thing you do is die, usually. And that's sort of like when I started to learn that sort of, not necessarily just dying, but just exploring a game in a less than efficient way is not always a bad thing, and it's good to have a good time. And I think that Morrowind sort of taught me a lot about telling stories in games, and just exploring it at your own pace and yeah, just getting out of it sort of what you want. I think that's one of the big things that Morrowind has taught me is the freedom in games, and you can do what you want and do what you wanted, and so yeah, and go where you wanted, and that's what I really started to love about it.
Have you had a similar feeling with another game since?
No, I think Morrowind did it best. Since the new games came out, Oblivion and Skyrim and things like that, and yeah, they still have the open world, and they still have all the things you can do, and all the places that you can go to, and all the people you can meet, and quests you can go on. But there was something about Morrowind, and I know it could be nostalgia talking, but the setting's magical, but it's also kind of weird with weird mushrooms and everything like that. There's something really alien about a lot of it, and then there's something really familiar about some of it. And the fact that it doesn't lead you by the hand as much, it sort of like says, okay, there you go, off you go, have fun. Which I don't think any of the other games in the series that I've experienced especially does. They kind of just give you a sort of like more than a push in a certain direction and tend to lead you by the hand a little bit more. Whereas in Morrowind, you get this really vague, go to this town, and that's more or less it. Which is... I don't think I've come across that since, really. Daggerfall does it as well, but yeah, Daggerfall's its own kind of animal, I think.
Daggerfall's, I'd agree, yeah.
Yeah,
it's
really open.
Game.
Yes, yeah. Maybe if I'd played Daggerfall first, I would feel that way about that game. I don't know, but I didn't. I played Morrowind first, so I got that feeling first from Morrowind. So that's where that originates from. So everything I equate to those qualities of freedom and that's I first of all, compare it to Morrowind, and so far nothing has been able to match it for that.
Would you like to, if that was possible, would you like to forget everything about Morrowind that you know and start over?
Yeah, I totally would. I absolutely would. I tried to do that. I took a few years off from it so that I could forget a lot about it and then rediscover it. Which is why on my YouTube channel, Interactive Morrowind was in like 2011 that finished, and then there was a number of years before I brought anything else out with Morrowind because I wanted to forget enough that I could like, oh yeah, so, get that feeling again because I played it so much, and this was before Tamriel Rebuilt and Morrowind Rebirth and everything. So the basic game, I'd pretty much found everything. The only thing I had, and I still haven't done to this day, is finish Tribunal. I've never finished it. Much to my shame, I guess. I know. I've only finished Blood Moon once as well, but the main island of Vardenfell, I played to death, and I pretty much knew where everything was, which is why I could do Interactive Morrowind on my channel, because any task that I was set, I could pretty much have a really good idea about how to go about it and what to do. And I still learned a lot doing that, and I had a lot of fun doing it. And I think it's testament to Morrowind's freedom is that Interactive Morrowind lasted for about 2 years,
For
400
the people
episodes.
who don't know, and if you don't, shame on you, but for the people who don't know, can you remind us what was the principle of Interactive Morrowind?
Yeah, I shouldn't have assumed. So in Interactive Morrowind, what the idea was, and it came to me one day at work, it just like hit me, is that I'll put a video up asking people what to do in Morrowind, and they can set me a task which could be like walk north for 10 minutes or try and do this or get that item or whatever, and they can set me a task, and I'll pick a random comment every week and then spend half an hour trying to do that comment. And I did that for a number of years every week. And it told its own story, and it was a really great experience. People really got on board with it, and it gave a lot of traction to my channel at the time. And I think that other people tried to replicate that with other games, but they couldn't, because Morrowind is the only game that has the freedom and the flexibility to be able to do that. So yeah, that was Interactive Morrowind, and it was a really good time. Really enjoyed it.
It was epic. We can say it. And yeah, Morrowind, like even walking for 10 minutes north is going to be fun and challenging because of the game, how the game is done. Or if you're given an impossible task, you're gonna go, well, I can get 30 bottles of Sujamma, and then with a bit of luck I'll be able to kill that NPC.
So you mean like how I
yeah,
I did that with Vivek. Yeah.
Was it? I thought I remember getting the Lord's Mail, but
that as well. Yeah.
That as well. Okay, all right.
Sujamma got me out of a couple of binds with go and kill that high level NPC. So yeah, I've killed Vivek and the Lord's Mail. The Lord's Mail was like the 3rd episode or something like that. So I had to kill this level 20 NPC who was wearing it, and the only way I could do it was with Sujamma. But again, the flexibility of doing it. You could do it if you knew how and you were willing to basically cheese the game and tank your intelligence to minus 200 or something. You could make your character strong and dumb enough to what this guy had enough so that he died. And yeah, so it really gave a whole lot of little mini stories, and the whole LP was, and LPs and Morrowind in general, sort of like made of stories, which I think is its key thing. You can play the game story, or you can make your own story with it as well. And I think that's such an asset to the game, is that you can play it kind of any way you want.
Huge part of it. And yes, like you can go and say, I want to fight things and kill a god, or I want to collect books and read them for hours, or I don't know, I want to find the best house to put piles of things in it. Like, there's something for everyone.
I want to try and get all the treasure without killing any enemies because I'm a complete pacifist, and the game will let you do that.
Yeah,
mostly.
Not easy to do. Not easy,
but you can. Easy, but yeah. It would definitely be a challenge, I reckon. But yeah, you probably could be able to do that somehow, some way. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first suggestion video only got 8 comments, and it by the end, I think we were getting a couple of hundred.
Mm-hmm.
It really kind of exploded, and it was good times.
Great idea.
Absolutely.
I really also love the Iron Man playthrough that you did.
Yeah, I called that Veriax's Iron Man Morrowind Adventures, and in that, randomly generated a character, so it was random race, random class, and then a random objective, be it to, again, kill an NPC, find something, go somewhere, that sort of thing. And I had to do that without dying. And this was like a modded install to make the game a little bit more survival-like. And yeah, again, that told a whole host of different stories, most of which ended in complete failure. But that was all part of the experience.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah, it was, again, just stories. The game tells such amazing stories, and you can do it with like even just random parameters, and suddenly the game like opens up this whole different element of playing it. With a class that you probably never even think of doing before, and you've got to find different items that you probably wouldn't use and play it a different way. And yeah, it's really, that's its strength, is that its flexibility in telling tales.
Definitely. Confession again, from your Iron Man playthrough, I love the idea. So for my permadeath, I do sometimes a completely random character and we get some stupid results. But I've kept also the goal idea, and I've added handicaps as well. So an NPC will not be allowed to cast a single spell, an NPC will not ever swim, whatever. There's tons of them. And when you have those handicaps, something that you're used to do one way, and you go, oh crap, I'm a teetotaler, can't drink Sujama, so what can I do then? And you're forced to find different ways to play the game.
Yeah, adding restrictions and limitations to your gameplay, adding flaws to your character, opens up entirely different ways of playing it. I played a character who was a bit of a germaphobe, so didn't want to touch any loot. So how would you loot anything? I've played characters that didn't really understand the purpose of gold or the value of gold or money, and it's like, so how do they get around and that kind of thing? So yeah, adding limitations and handicaps like that, a whole different fresh view of storytelling, and once again the game will adapt and let you do that, which again is a real testament to how flexible and open the game is. Something that very few games I think you could do it with. I'm sure there are out there games that you could do that kind of thing, but I think Morrowind lends itself the most, as far as I'm concerned, in my opinion, to that style of gameplay where you just think, I can't do X or Y, and the game will be like, okay, all right, but you can still do this, or this, and still get the same effect. Might be a bit more difficult, a bit more interesting, you might say, but you can still do it. So yeah, the flexibility of the game is pretty amazing.
Definitely. In your recent playthrough, oh, by the way, there was a question, but it's been answered. Somebody asked if you would be talking with Rast's voice for the interview.
I could, if you wanted.
No, Rast is Rast, and you're
yeah,
Veriax,
leave him at home. I think he might derail things a little bit.
Exactly, and better keep his strength for his own adventures.
He's a pretty chaotic character.
Yes,
yeah,
totally. Which, if people are not following this Let's Play, they can always head on after this interview and watch Rast's Ventures.
Yeah, it's ongoing currently. Absolutely, yeah.
But that's not where I was going. Yes, you mentioned mods, and I noticed that with this more recent playthrough, you have Tamriel rebuilt as well. So how do you decide the sort of mods that you install for your game?
I try and do things differently. Interactive Morrowind had no mods, and then we have Vima, which has a few more mods, and then with Rast I decided to just go all out and I wanted to see whether I could install it. Pretty much, I was like, could I do this? Because I'm not that technically proficient, and managed to. Why I installed it for Rast's particular story, I have no idea, and frankly, I'm not sure whether it was a good idea, because Rast is really chaotic and does what he wants when he wants. So adding even more options into the game for him to get lost in and sidetracked by might not have been the best idea for a concise narrative. So if I was to go back, I probably wouldn't have added Tamriel Rebuilt. I'd have kept Morrowind Rebirth, because that changes Vardenfell and how things work on that, and that lets you re-explore the main island. I am actually planning on doing a new series, probably on stream, where I'm going to play an explorer, like an Indiana Jones type of character who wants to try and find artifacts and things like that, and that will be more of a Tamriel Rebuilt kind of project, because then I get to explore all of this new lands and everything like that that's on there. So in answer to your question about how I decide, I just kind of like have a look and think, okay, yeah, I could maybe work with that, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But that's just how it rolls sometimes,
And that's part of the fun as well.
Yeah.
I got really, really excited when you said you wanted to do a playthrough, sort of Indiana Jones styles, especially after I confessed to you that 2 of your Let's Plays inspired me a lot, because I've already started an Indiana Jones playthrough.
I have, yeah. I've seen some of that.
Do you remember anything quite funny or surprising that happened to you when playing Morrowind? It doesn't have to be 20 years ago, because, well, those memories were a long time ago. But anything funny that happened to you in game?
I've got a lot of memories. The standout memory for me, the point where I realised this game is awesome, was I've actually written the name of the ruin down. It is Asan Atamat, and it's sort of like east of Caldera, Balmora. And it's the point where I realised this game is really awesome, and it's one of those points where I those things that I'll never forget. And it's when I was walking down this rocky valley, and this Daedric ruin emerges from the gloom, because obviously the view distance is terrible. This is like my first character, and this ruin wasn't on the paper map that I had at the time. Some of them were marked, and this one wasn't. So I just thought it was like, all right, if I go down here, I'll then get to Balmora. And this thing emerged from the gloom, and it was my first Daedric ruin ever. And just seeing all these jagged architecture and this thing that was, there's so much on the map, but there's things that are in the game that aren't on the map. And I was like, wow, that's absolutely incredible. And so finding that and the surprise and again awe of this ruin in the middle of this in nowhere pretty much, and then having to run for my life from a scamp was one of the points where I kind of realized this game is definitely for me. And it was, because 20 years later I'm still playing it. I mean, otherwise there's things in the interactive LP like building a pillar fort or doing a book of bridges and all that kind of stuff that I had to do. They're all great memories as well. I also remember getting ambushed by a mud crab on stream once, because I was talking to chat, and I actually got sneak attacked by a mud crab, pretty much, which is fairly embarrassing.
Yeah.
So all these little memories pile up and give me such an affection for the game, because again, they're all just little stories that the game tells, that I haven't really found with any other game, honestly.
I think you've done a bunch of Let's Plays on your YouTube and on Twitch as well, but Morrowind is the one that comes back regularly.
Yeah, I keep. It's just so flexible, as I say, that there's so many different ways to do it, and it's not like with Baldur's Gate where you can play it with a different class or combination of classes. With Morrowind, it's more than that, because you can really change the actual play style of the game and how you do things and where you go and all that kind of thing, and you can change the plot and you can change who you meet and your character's endgame and all that kind of thing, and again, it's just because it is so flexible and so open, it's practically limitless what you can do with it. I played so many different characters in Morrowind. I've lost count of how many, everything from like noble knights to druids to evil sorcerers, and they all tell their own story, and they all did their own thing, and Morrowind let me tell what I wanted to tell.
Yeah, and we love it for that.
Absolutely, yeah.
You've played also other titles in the series. We understand that Morrowind is your favorite, and nobody is going to blame you for that. But were there some good bits, let's say, from the other games that you would have liked to see in Morrowind as well?
Yeah, I think that there's because Morrowind is a game that is greater than the sum of its parts. So if you take the combat in Morrowind, it's not really that good. If you take every sort of individual, there's a lot of spells in Morrowind that don't do anything. You can make poisons that don't do anything, and all that kind of stuff. And if
There
you
are
if
NPCs that attack you with a weakness to corpus disease.
yeah
Haha. And you're like,
yeah yeah,
okay.
and so there's so much stuff in there. There's some fat that that could need trimming, that kind of thing. So the fact that you could maybe poison weapons in Oblivion, doing that in Morrowind, so you can make poison weapons and things like that. And
Spoiler, you can do that with mods.
with mods, yeah, with mods, of course,
very,
yeah.
very immersive, in a very immersive way.
Yes, yeah, of course. You can do most, because I know like you can change the combat with mods and things like that. But as a sort of like
Improve
a vanilla
Improve
experience,
it.
yeah, you can change it. I never really minded the combat in Morrowind. Being used to like D&D and everything like that, and never been a huge fan of like mega graphics in games. Growing up in the era that I did. I never minded that my sword passed through the enemy when it didn't hit, and that kind of thing. But I can understand the point that people make when they say the combat is a bit rubbish. I can get that. So, but if I change it to be like Oblivion, I don't know, because Oblivion's not perfect either. It seems a bit kind of like wishy-washy and wavy, and I think it lacks impact, and that kind of thing. So, but certain things like especially the poison and things like that, I would probably like import into Morrowind. If I could, if we went back, and what would you like default Morrowind to have? It would probably be.
If Todd called you and said, "Hey, we're making this game Morrowind. What feature should we add?"
Yeah, there's not a lot that Morrowind lacks, really. But yeah, there is obviously quite a lot in there that you're never going to use, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I'd rather have things in there that you're not going to use than not have things in there that you want.
Sure.
So there's not a lot, but I do understand people's like misgivings about it.
Especially coming from more modern games, like if you play Dark Souls and then you go and play Morrowind, you're probably going to be very disappointed with combat.
Yeah, but again, very different games. Because Dark Souls is all about the combat. That's pretty much what it is. It's learning the combat and learning the bosses, and I love Dark Souls, and I love the lessons it teaches about perseverance and learning from your mistakes and everything like that. I think it's a fantastic series. But I think Morrowind would probably lose something if it became more about the combat and less about the storytelling. So yeah, it's just a different genre, completely different kind of way of doing things. And Morrowind combat is better than Daggerfall combat. So they did change things from there. So at least it isn't Daggerfall combat.
Though I really like the idea of actually swinging the sword.
Yeah. For immersion and things like that.
In practice,
I mean, Morrowind combat does have its own way of kind of doing things, and it's got the 3 types of attack you can do, and you can also do like different spells, and you've got marksman as well. So I think there is a lot of flexibility in the gameplay. So I don't think combat is as terrible as people make out. But again, I do understand why people are put off by it. I just wish people would see through that and onto a bigger picture of what the game is really about, which is about the story and the setting and what you can do in it, rather than like how you do it, if you like, in terms of like the game mechanics.
Any features from Skyrim that would have been good in Morrowind?
No. Let's see. What do we got? Dragons drinking snow. No, we got that in Solstheim.
Yeah.
I don't really know what Skyrim added that wasn't particularly in Oblivion, really. Apart from, well, you got shouts, but they're basically spells.
Yeah.
So maybe physics would make things a bit more immersive.
Mhm.
Yeah, possibly. But then we have mods like more Oblivion and things like that, which do just that. They bring Morrowind into new engines.
Mhm.
So you can get that if you want. But I throughout my time playing Morrowind, I've never really thought, wow, I wish I could like ragdoll this guy like down a cliff or something like that. It's just not what the game's about. It's not really a particularly flashy game about blasting people off mountainsides and all that kind of stuff. It's a much more kind of just basic experience, I suppose, of you telling a story with your character where he starts out as absolutely nobody, and you've got to prove to the game that you're somebody, and the progression is something that happens in Morrowind more than in the other two, because in the other two you're pretty much special right off the back. In Morrowind you have to prove it. You might be special, we don't really know, and at the end you still don't really know. You did all the things that you were told to do, but were you really special, or did you make yourself special? Where, in Skyrim you are the Dragonborn right from the beginning, pretty much, and that makes you special, and so, go you're special because we say you are, rather than because you made yourself be the Nerevarine, pretty much.
Mm. It's true. It's something with Morrowind. It's all very shades of grey. Like even when you finish the game, you beat the bad guy, but was he really that bad? And you don't really know. Even once you've played the game, you don't know. It's
No.
up to you basically to decide what you make of it.
Yeah, and the one of the strengths of the way the game is kind of constructed is that Dagothr is this kind of like threat, but it is not a threat that's going to end the world anytime soon. It's just this sort of looming darkness on Red Mountain, which is all kind of like being contained anyway. So you can quite easily forget about it and do other things. Whereas in Skyrim, everything is and Oblivion as well, with the gates opening, everything's in such a rush. So it feels much less natural to have Oblivion gates opening and all the cities, or with Skyrim, the dragons are attacking, kill everyone. Yeah, well, I'm just going to go and do side quests for a couple of months. So I'll see you guys later.
While the world is burning.
Exactly. And so the urgency, does make you feel more engaged, I suppose, with what's going on. But at the same time, it's much less. It doesn't lend itself to your own storytelling, because as soon as you go down that road, it's so unnatural to veer off it and do other things. Whereas in Morrowind, the first thing they tell you is, you look kind of new. Maybe you should go and join a guild or go and do something else for a bit. Actually, they actually say, we don't actually need you right now. You're too new. You are so special. It's like, you're nobody. Go and do some side quests or something. So the game actually makes you do that.
And then
with that, so again, a strength for storytelling, where it lets you go and do your own thing.
Yeah, I was going to add, even a bit later, after you've done a few quests, you go back to Gaius Cosadis and he goes, you know what, here's some money, go get some shoes or something. Like literally, he sends you shopping, which I appreciated, but I don't think there's too many games that tell you, come back later.
No, and it's not like in one of the major problems with Daggerfall is that you're not high enough level yet. Morrowind doesn't do that, thankfully. It says you don't look high enough level, but you can still kind of do this if you want. It doesn't actually literally say high enough level, but it lets you know that you're new and maybe you should go and do other things. Whereas in Daggerfall, it's like you need to be level 10 to do this quest, so go and you have to grind, which can be a bit of a chore, because it can be quite samey. Whereas I think Morrowind gets the balance right of not saying you're the chosen one, but equally not saying you must do X to do Y. It's saying you probably should, but we'll let you do it if you think you're going to be okay with it. And I think that's a really nice immersive way of getting you into the story and or maybe pushing you in different directions. So I think it strikes just the right balance with that, particularly at the start.
You say grind. It's not something that exists in Morrowind. In fact, if anything, you want to go from point A to point B, and despite yourself, you find yourself wandering left and right, forgetting where you were going and why, and doing other things. You never actually grind, in fact.
No, another thing I think that Morrowind does really well is level scaling as well. When not every single enemy is geared towards your level, there are some that are placed in specific areas. So if you go straight to Red Mountain, you're going to meet things that are going to kill you instantly. So not the entire game is geared towards you, you and like focused around you and what you want to do. If you can try and take on these really tough enemies if you want, and usually if you do, you'll get some really nice loot out of it. In terms of like whatever dungeon you're in, but yeah, generally it's really nice to. I think it does a really good job of easing you into the game, and then you find mud crabs and things like that, and then you get scamps, and then you get confiers or whatever, and you slowly find all these different enemies. But it seems quite natural because it seems like the deeper you go into the island, at least at the start, the tougher the enemies get, because the more you explore, the deeper into the island you go, you sort of like. So yeah, I really think that it does level scaling really well, and doesn't. It's not like an Oblivion where every single thing in the game, with one or two minor exceptions, will be for your level. If you go to a dangerous place, you're probably going to die in Morrowind. But at the same time, you have the freedom to not go there, or if you do go there, you do have a way to kind of get past them if you're prepared enough.
Yeah, it's got a nice blend of leveled enemies, but then also hand-placed enemies, so that exploration is worth it. And part of it is turning around and running out of the cave because you're completely out of your depth.
Absolutely, and then going back later and battering them because you've got better, and that feeling of progression, is so nice. So when I ran away from that dated ruin, then going back with a silver weapon and be able to beat that scamp or whatever, brilliant. Awesome. What a victory to kill the most minor Daedra in the game, but still, it was a tale to tell.
An achievement.
Yeah, absolutely. Just by itself.
Just like finding that cave that they send you to. Like, just finding it feels like a great victory. You go, yes! This is Q, a weird name for a ruin.
Yeah, the lack of a compass marker it's something that they've obviously done away with, which is a shame. And I think a good balance, because I can understand why people would want one, because there have been in times in Morrowind when I played it in the past that I have been utterly lost. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because I think getting lost in Morrowind is a big part of the gameplay, and you don't find this, but on your way to looking for this, you find that. And I think that's brilliant. But there have been times where I've been like, generally, I have no idea where you mean by, go up the second path after the fallen tree next to the rock that looks like a guar or whatever, the directions that you get. So it would be nice if I suppose, like, answer to your earlier question, if there was a toggleable
compass
point on the map now Skyrim had a really interesting spell called Clairvoyance, which when you cast it led you on your way. And I think that's such an immersive, completely underused spell. It's just a shame that it was completely pointless because of this bloody icon that was always on your map. And because of this icon, you kind of like just beeline for it, and you miss so much other things because you never wonder, oh, is that the cave I need? You know it isn't, because it's not in line with the icon at the top of your screen. So you don't need to go in that cave, whereas normally you kind of check it out and maybe, well, I'll just have a look in it type thing. And you don't get that emergent storytelling from following a point on your compass as you do from looking around saying, is that the cave I need? I'm supposed to go around here, and you're actually looking and exploring and experiencing the world because you're lost. And so I think that's a really really good thing to be lost in Morrowind.
Yeah.
To wonder, where am I? That you rarely get when you have an icon pointing it. So I think, for future Elder Scrolls, if they made it so it had Morrowind directions, but you could, if you wanted to, cast a Clairvoyance spell or just have this, maybe like a blimp or something that just shows you you've got to be over here. And so, okay, fine, thanks. So, but in general, getting lost in Morrowind's great.
Yeah, I can't imagine that they would do away with the compass.
No, I don't think they will. I do not think they will.
I mean, unfortunately, no. It would be nice to have the option to not have one. Let's go.
It would, because they say, like, you get a quest. And it's like, oh, so bandits have stolen my mother's amulet. Can you please get it back? They're in Deepwater Cave, and then that's it. And then you check your journal, and it just says that, and you don't know. And then it turns out that it's halfway across the map or something. But if they said it's Deepwater Cave, on the shores of Lake whatever, near the town of whatever, then at least it gives you like an immersive direction to go into. So I'd prefer. I want a little bit more of that from future games, rather than just you just know where things are. It pops into your head, and you can say that happens, in the game, because obviously, canonically in the game they tell you where it is and mark it on your map or whatever, because that's what they're doing. They're marking it on your map, so you know exactly where it is. Yeah. But there's just something missing from that. You just miss the emergent storytelling of going out and looking for the fallen tree next to the rock that looks like a gua. You're not looking for that anymore. You're just following this compass point, and you lose something with that. It's a shame.
Literally going from point A to point B.
Yeah.
So even if they wanted to do, give us a little more directions, then most of the game data would be voice files, because it's voice acted. So
yeah,
that wouldn't even be practical, I guess.
No, it wouldn't be. And I mean, after the first playthrough, who listens to voices? Let's be honest. Oblivion had like half of its memory taken up by voice lines from 6 different actors for however many 100 NPCs, and most of it just gets skipped anyway. So I think voice acting is a good thing for certain NPCs, very important things, like it is in Morrowind. Very important sort of like things that you should pay attention to this because someone's saying it. But having it for kind of everything, I think is a little bit of a waste. But I get that it's immersive, and I get that it's something that is needed now in modern games, because gamers don't like to read anymore.
No.
So keep it short and keep it spoken, and that's probably why you don't get the story of the cave next to the lake next to the town, is because go to this cave and then you just check it on your map and you can just go there. So a lot of it is to do with like how people want to play games these days, and they probably just do want to go to A to B to get the loot.
Yeah, it feels a little bit like instant gratification.
Absolutely.
You don't want to have to wait for that big fight with the big boss giving you the big loot. That happens to be a big sword. I don't know. I'm guessing it has to be all very, very big. Have you given Elder Scrolls Online a go?
No, I never played that. I've seen it here and there, but I've never actually got any experience of playing it myself.
And not tempted.
No, not really. Because with very few exceptions, I think that Morrowind's a very personal experience of, it's you on your own. And it kind of always has been that way for the past, over a decade. The only kind of exception to that is if you share that experience with someone else. I've done work with Sorcerer Dave playing multiplayer Morrowind, which is a triumph in itself and so much fun. But I think at its core, for me, Morrowind, Elder Scrolls is a kind of like just a very personal story of you on your own. Not so that it wouldn't work with others, but I think it'll do something if you've got other people running around doing that. I don't really find MMOs particularly immersive, which is probably why I tend to stay away from them. that much, and also because I'm afraid I'll get addicted and never play anything ever again. So
there's always a risk. But
yeah,
those games
yeah.
are really, really good at finding ways to make you log on every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, and every sort of like next step is just a little like if I do this for half an hour, I get that, and then I can get that and that and that. Yeah, I've fallen into that trap before. So it doesn't it first of all like doesn't particularly appeal, and secondly it maybe appeals a bit too much. You know, it's kind of weird. I don't want to fall into the trap, so I tend to stay away from MMOs in general, mostly because it's not really my thing. You know.
Yeah, and it's even completely different when you're playing with a friend, and then you're really sharing the adventures together. But then if it's lots of people that you don't really know and you've never met, then it's not your adventure anymore. It's
yeah, it's not your story. Yeah,
I get that. So let me see. From someone who loves Morrowind, do you have other games that you really, really enjoy?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I very much enjoy Oblivion. I've got a whole lot of experience of playing that. Great Let's Play as well. You know, people say it's a great Let's Play, so but I'm proud of the Let's Play that I've done with that, and that told its own story really well. But I play a lot of different games, really, everything from course Baldur's Gate as well to newer titles like Total War Warhammer, and I think most things with like sword and sorcery, fighting fantasy sort of things, I can get behind. I can get behind swinging an axe at something, lopping off an orc's head.
I think you're on Twitch. I saw you playing Fallout. I want to say 4, but I've never played the Fallout game, so I can't tell them apart.
It's 3, yeah.
It's 3.
3 and I played New Vegas as well, and it's a
Vegas.
similar kind of thing. With it tells a story. You can tell a story in those games, and people say that Fallout 3 is Oblivion with guns, and I think that's pretty harsh. Because I think it does its own thing well enough not to be that. I think it's a fairly unique, immersive experience with a really nice setting.
Well, nice.
Not obviously, you know, as good as Morrowind, but yeah, it's a break from the norm, if you like, of magic and dragons and things where you can blast a super mutant in the head with a shotgun. I like games with freedom as well, so the Deus Ex games are really good for the way that they let you approach the gameplay. The newer ones are really slick, and again, they give you freedom. You can be sneaky, you can talk your way out of trouble, you can go through walls if you want, or you can just gun down loads of enemies. It's up to you. And so the way that you can, again, it gives you a little bit of freedom and lets you kind of approach things how you want.
I'm getting the sense that freedom in a game is very important for you.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, well, is there anything at all you wanted to mention that we haven't talked about?
I'm not sure. Just that, I mean, Morrowind's sort of like where it all started from. That's when my community started to build. I still have people who watched Interactive Morrowind 10 years ago who still watch me now, or people find me and be like, "Oh, you're the guy who did that way back in the day." So I'm just really grateful for everyone who's kind of stuck by me, if you like, and or watched it at the time even, and just enjoyed the game with me, whether it was Interactive Morrowind or any other LP that I've done. I'm really grateful to everyone who has watched and to the makers of Morrowind for making all that possible and let me tell all these stories.
Very true. Thank you so much for sharing your Morrowind story with us.
No problem at all. No, thank you for having me listen. It's really cool that you're doing this.
Yeah, I get to talk to all kinds of people, which is great. Also makes me feel really old, but it's worth it. Totally worth it. And well, hopefully we'll talk again for Morrowind 30th anniversary.
Absolutely, I'll be there. Yeah,
Let's
still
do
playing
that.
it.
Let's
I'll
do
be
that.
still playing it.
Excellent. Have a great day, and talk to you soon.
Thank you very much. Toodaloo.
Bye bye.